Mercedes' extensive upgrades for its Monaco Grand Prix upgrade of the W14 Formula 1 car was astonishing. It resulted in a P4 and P5 in Monaco, and now the big test is coming up this weekend in Spain. Will the upgraded W14 be up for the test? And what exactly were these big changes that started their resurgence? And will it be enough to challenge for a race win in Spain? While the obvious discussion points were the side pods and front suspension, there were some fascinating detailed tweaks that surfaced as well. The key difference in the new front suspension setup was the pickup position at the chassis end on the lead arm of the upper wishbone. The arm is now situated on the top corner of the chassis, rather than the previous location, which was around 10 centimeters below that line. Obviously, this will influence the mechanical performance of the front suspension, as well as the overall dynamics of the car. However, there are certainly some aerodynamic benefits as well, as the arm now falls more in line with the angle of the other parts, which are all utilized to channel the airflow down and around the side pods. To take advantage of this, the suspension elements fairings as well as Mercedes' chassis blister appear to have been changed. The blister, which was first introduced as part of an update package for the British Grand Prix last season, looks to be less sharply slanted than before to better match with the altered position of the upper wishbone's lead arm. This will aid in the establishment of the flow structures required to take advantage of the alterations made to the bodywork downstream. In addition, a new floor vane has appeared beside the chassis and behind the location where Mercedes still uses a pair of downwash canards. The vane, like the canards, is legal since they are within the box region linked with the chassis, implying that the W14 chassis does not take up the whole space allotted. The side pods are the major emphasis of this update package, especially from an aesthetic standpoint. But although much has been made about what has changed with the W14's bodywork, it's also worth discussing what hasn't. In this regard, we must discuss one of the primary characteristics of the defunct zero side pod solution, the SIS fairing. The former configuration required this fairing since it encompassed the top side impact structure, with a safety feature required to be fitted inside a specified dimensions window on the chassis. The same is true for the lower side impact structure, with each team choosing a distinct strategy to achieve the proper balance for their intended choice of packaging for the side pods and floor, while keeping the development scope for the aerodynamics in mind. And due to the stringent requirements imposed by these standards, cost caps, and resource constraints, teams are unable to simply create and produce a new chassis to address any flaws discovered when undertaking big-scale concept revisions like this one. For Mercedes, this implies that the SIS locations and fairings remain, but have been incorporated into the new design philosophy of this new idea. The vane slung beneath the fairing has also been preserved, but its height has been decreased, its length has been extended, and it now includes a feather-like pair of slits in the bottom half to assist flow over the side pod's shoulder. Because the fairing is above and ahead of the intake, there is an overbite, with the lower leading edge of the new side pod inlet set back behind it. Of course, this is the opposite direction that most of the grid has followed. Many have followed Red Bull's lead and used an underbite lower leading edge protrusion to extend the undercut and shield the airflow absorbed by the intake from the weight caused by the front tyre. Despite this, Mercedes was able to carve an undercut under the intake to aid enhance the route that the airflow follows around the bottom corner of the bodywork, which has also been expanded to fit the downwash ramp component of the unit. The upper surface of the downwash ramp also has a design we've seen before, with Alpine being the first to explore the water slide style branch in the development tree. Others, like Aston Martin, have subsequently taken up the baton and incorporated deeper gullies, a path that Alpine has now followed with improvements unveiled in Monaco. On top of the Mercedes side pod, there's a panel that can be adjusted depending on the degree of cooling needed, with each version having a variable number and size of cooling louvres. The extra width provided by the new side pod bodywork has also allowed Mercedes to employ another tactic observed from Red Bull over the previous few seasons. A support beam is used in conjunction with metal support spars to assist maintain floor stiffness. Mercedes also revised its floor as part of this massive makeover, not only to ensure that it interacts effectively with the new side pod bodywork, but also to the floor fence camber and the design of the edge wing. In terms of the latter, the scrolled part is now deeper and has a trio of strakes to aid manage the direction of flow, rather than the prior solitary streak. As the W14 was hoisted over the barriers following Lewis Hamilton's FP3 shunt, we got our first genuine look at its underfloor, thanks to the peculiar logistics involved in retrieving vehicles around the streets of Monaco. The photos show that Mercedes had made improvements since last season, adopting certain design elements seen elsewhere, such as the changed keel design as it combines with the crash structure. But Monaco ended with no podium. However, they still left with a good feeling. Mercedes would never have been pleased with Lewis Hamilton in 4th position in the past, but circumstances have changed. They may alter even more in the coming months because it will be evident in Barcelona how beneficial the modifications already implemented in Monaco are. Mercedes had planned to apply the modifications for the first time in Imola, but that race was, well, as we all know, cancelled. The German team then chose to implement the upgrades using Monaco. How well did they work? It's impossible to evaluate our upgrades on a circuit like Monaco, but at least we didn't have any nasty surprises, team manager Toto Wolff said in a press statement. At the Circuit de Catalunya, it should be easier to determine whether and how much the changes have helped Mercedes. Spain will provide an opportunity for us to establish a new baseline with the W14. It is a track that we are familiar with, although the removal of the final chicane will make it a much quicker lap. It comprises a wide range of corner types that provides a good opportunity for us to learn about the new package. We don't expect to see a step change in performance, but we're hopeful it will provide a more stable platform. Mercedes will remain in Barcelona for a few extra days following the Grand Prix weekend. Tuesday and Wednesday are slated for Pirelli tyre testing. On the second day, test and reserve driver Mick Schumacher will receive his first shot behind the wheel of a Mercedes. After the Grand Prix weekend, Mick will also get his first real-world taste of the W14 on the second day of the Pirelli tyre test. He's done a great job with the team so far, working hard back in the simulator and giving valuable input trackside. We're looking forward to him getting his first taste of on-track running this year, and sure it will help him in his role as reserve driver, Wolff believes. Even though the team has made major changes to the car, the biggest needed change has to wait, as Mercedes will have to wait until 2024 to make the most essential change to their car due to the cost restriction. Mercedes CEO Toto Wolff has revealed that the team would be unable to deliver a new Formula 1 chassis in the 2023 season. While Lewis Hamilton and George Russell finished 4th and 5th respectively, Wolff noted that the improvement was only the beginning of the effort to get Red Bull back into the race. The car was also characterized as a compromise because the original W14 chassis was developed around the Zero sidepods, implying that the additional pieces were crowbarred onto the car. Such a significant increase would ordinarily need a chassis modification and re-homologation by the FIA, but Wolff claims this is simply not doable. If we were not in cost cap land, we would have introduced another chassis, which we can't, Wolff said. What we did is a fundamental shift in the design direction, the way we generate grip mechanically and aerodynamically. We are very immature in our understanding of the current car, and therefore we expect upgrades to come regularly within the financial parameters that exist, but everybody should be under the same constraints. Barcelona is not enough to know where we need to improve, as we need to collect data. That's why we put it on the car in Monaco to collect further analysis. We will do that in Barcelona, which is the next race. Montreal is a little bit of an outlier again, and over the next races, hopefully we can really increase the performance of the car, but it's not going to suddenly be right there. When asked if Mercedes would continue their tradition of winning at least one race every year since 2012 this season, Wolff was cautiously hopeful. "We haven't changed the nastiness of the rear end of the car. We need to dial that out, which we will, but it is a long road," he said. Are we able to win a race this year? I would very much hope that we can get ourselves back to the front and fight, but there's more variables today with the other teams. We just need to aim to win and push into the race for the championship. What are your thoughts on the upgrades? Will this be enough to challenge the front runners in Barcelona? Can they produce some magic like they did in Barcelona last year? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for watching today's video, and we'll see you in the next one.